What do you think about sticking some construction junk to the wall today? I mean, what does a junk journaler do with this kind of junk? If it doesn't fit in the journal, it has to go on the wall. Hi there, this is Luisa Heinzel with some oversized pieces of construction junk. And those pieces didn't fit into my construction site journal I made while I was moving from Austria to Germany and while I had a construction site in my new apartment. So I thought, let's make a wall decoration from these pieces and at the same time a memory of this time. I have taken a vignette tray. This is by Tim Holtz Ideology. And I have first put a little piece of a printable as a background into this tray. This is from my Translucent Flower Whispers printable. You can find that in my shop. The link is down below in the description box. I have used this paper because I created this digital paper during the time of the construction site. So I thought that is the perfect piece for the background here. I wanted to have something for the background that looks really dusty, but at the same time somehow like elegant, a little bit fairy-ish. You know, fairies sprinkle this kind of glittery stuff around, and that was for me like a symbol for this time, which is coming now for me in my new life, which is coming now. But at the same time, there was a ton of dust, not dusk. What is dusk? A ton of dust during the construction site time, and I wanted to have the combination of this. So how did I do that? I have taken some sticky embossing powder and some mica flakes. The sticky embossing powder is nothing else than a glue, which is a powder when it's in the package, and which you then can melt, then it gets sticky, and then you can stick things to it. Really, really cool. So it's called sticky embossing powder, but it's basically a glue in form of a powder. Does that make sense? Hopefully. So I have put the mica flakes on top of this melted sticky embossing powder. I have pressed that a little bit with my fingers, and then I have done that in all of the corners of this tray. And of course, when you use not too much of this embossing powder, then not everything sticks so well. So I didn't need too much of the powder because I wanted to use another embossing powder in the next step, which you can see me doing here. This is frosted crystal embossing powder, not sticky, just an embossing powder, but with a special feature. If you use frosted crystal correctly, then, and I say correctly because you can make some mistakes with using that, and you have to practice that a little bit, because this embossing powder, frosted crystal, is a really, really matte and frosty embossing powder. And I say matte in such an extreme way because if you overheat it, it gets glossy. And that's also the reason why you probably have to practice this a little bit. To be honest, when I used this the first time, it was a disaster because everything was glossy, because I simply had too much heat and too long, my heat gun too long over the powder so that it got glossy, and I had to practice that a little bit. Why am I telling you that? If you want to try that out, then please don't give up. If it doesn't work the first time, just practice it a little bit. But then it is really, in combination with those mica flakes, a little bit like dust, but elegant at the same time. Somehow also, a little glittery. That's also the reason why it's called frosted crystal. It's like frosty. It's not really glitter, but it's frosty, and frost is glittery. Do you know what I mean? Okay, so let's go on with this. So I had this little can from some paint, from a paint sample. This is also a color I have used in several spots in my apartment, and I have bought that to see how the colors come out on the wall. You know, when you have daylight in your apartment, that's a totally different thing than seeing the paint or the color of the paint in the store. So I had a ton of these little containers, and I thought that is the perfect size for this project. here you can see me freaking out a little bit because here happened, yeah, I would say a medium-sized disaster. Obviously, when I glued the paper to the tray with some Liquitex gel medium, the gel medium dried too fast somehow, or perhaps I had too much heat from my heat gun. I had some air under the paper, so between the paper and the tray, and I could feel that there's a bubbly little crappy thing, yeah. So I thought, what can I do? Because if there's air between the paper and the tray, I can't glue anything on that because it would fall off and it can't be sturdy. So I decided to make some holes into this thing, and then I realized that that is a really cool happy accident, because when I came to the apartment here, the first thing I have done was to take the wallpaper off from the walls, and this looks a little bit like torn off wallpaper. So I thought, okay, I can interpret it like that and just take some crackle paint, put that in there to get a connection to the background. And then I remembered that I had these mica flakes on the paper here, mixed with some sticky embossing powder, you know, that was a little like weird party mixture, because this stuff I can't put back into my container of the mica flakes because it's mixed with the sticking embossing powder, and I didn't want that. So I thought, before I put that into the trash can, I can just put it on here and get a connection to the rest of the background. Yeah, so it looks really cool. And the crackle paint makes it stick to the surface, of course. So here you can see me trying to find a way how I can put all of my items to this tray. I thought I can take, for example, the paintbrush and this other little thing where I don't know the English name. I am sure that someone of you has already told me that in the comments, but I can't remember in this moment, sorry. But I thought I can take these things, arrange them, make a photo, and then take everything off and then glue the things down with the help of my photo. But then I realized that that is completely impossible, because all of those things are so, yeah, some of them are tiny, like these nails, and there are so many things that I thought I can never make an arrangement and then take a photo and then glue everything like it was on the photo. So I decided that I will glue that down spontaneously and in the order it comes to my mind and my hands. That is not such a usual way of doing that for me. Yeah, normally I would plan that way more extremely, but I must say it was really, really meditative somehow and really relaxing. I had a lot of fun arranging these little things, and perhaps sometimes that is just the best way to do this kind of thing. Yeah, I mean, it's a collage from dimensional things and how to manage that. Especially with the glue I used. I used glossy accents for gluing this because glossy accents dries really, really hard and clear. It's really sturdy when you, especially when you glue different materials to each other. I find that a really, really good glue for something like that. But as you can see from this gesture, you have to wait for a longer time to let this dry completely. So it takes a while, but I think it's worth it because in the end, it's completely sturdy. This whole thing is relatively heavy, so I thought it's good to have the strongest glue I have and a glue that dries glossy. That has a reason, because in the end I want to have some more glossy areas there, and I already thought about that in this moment. Of course, you can also use collage medium, for example, to glue these things together, or another strong glue, but perhaps it's worth it to think about the final finish, if that is glossy or matte. Yeah. So I wanted to have, and that was also a reason why I did that somehow intuitively. I mean, gluing these things down. I wanted to have this look of a pile of junk, because when this junk was in the apartment, it was also on a pile. Yeah, of course, we have taken that, and when we brought this trash, you know, to the place where you can bring your trash. Do you know what I mean? When it's too much for the trash can that you have at your home. I mean, I don't know how it is in your area, but we have a really, yeah, like recycling place, a really big place where you can bring all of these things. And of course, you have to separate them. You have to put, you know, metal to metal, wood to wood, and so on. But in the moment of the construction site, it was like on a pile and everything was mixed. And I wanted to have something like that on my tray here as well. And gluing this intuitively and spontaneously really helped to get this look of a chaos somehow. But at the same time, I had in mind that I want to have somehow like a little arrangement that looks like a really abstract landscape or something. Can you see it? I mean, I don't know. That is so hard. I mean, with those kind of projects, it's always so hard. I read comments under my videos where you say, "Oh, on that paper there was a face," or "I saw a cat in your project," or something like that. And I haven't seen that in the moment when I created that. And when I then read the comment, I can also see it. But when I'm sitting here and when I talk to you and say this is somehow a landscape, then of course I don't know if you can see that as well. And that is always a little bit weird. But I also think that it is important that everyone can interpret such a thing in his or her own way. Yeah. So if you don't see a landscape, then perhaps you see something different. The main thing is, hopefully you are inspired by this and you want to do something like this with your own trash, perhaps. Speaking about your own trash, if you see this and you think, "Oh, I can't do something like this because I don't have the same materials like Louisa has on her desk," don't freak your freak, because you can, of course, use what is in your trash can. That doesn't have to be the same stuff like I have here. That doesn't have to be rusty nails and a paintbrush. That can also be like, you know, wooden sticks from ice cream, or some containers of a beverage or something like that. Yeah, you can take what you have, or something that you have collected during a holiday, like shells or whatever, stones. Take what you have and try something like this. It's just so much fun. Yeah, so here you could see I had a coffee and a little bit of drying time in the meantime, so that now everything is like nearly completely sturdy. The glue is dry, but I realized that when I shake it a little bit, that some of the pieces were moving, and I think they would not have fallen off, but it was not so, like, you know, I want everything to be super, super sturdy. So I thought, what can I do to make this not only more sturdy, but also to bring these different pieces a little bit more together visually. So I have taken this fixative. This is normally meant to seal your artwork, but when you spray it, then it's sticky. And of course, when I spray it, I can come into all of these little slots with the spray. And I use this now for making the frosted crystal embossing powder stick to my piece here. So instead of embossing ink, yeah, so because embossing ink is not sprayable, but this stuff is really good for that. So I have sprayed a good amount of this sealer to the whole surface, and now I take a really, really generous amount of frosted crystal embossing powder and sprinkle that over the whole stuff. Yeah. When I saw this, I was a little bit afraid, but I thought, okay, that will work. I have done something similar on different projects already, so I thought it will work. But on the other hand, it was like, I have these pieces only one time, and this is the only chance to do this and to get a nice result. Yeah, so when you have these things which are a memory for you, then it's a little bit like dangerous when something goes wrong. But you will see in a second, it worked just like I wanted it to work. So what is this now? The frosted crystal embossing powder is sticking to the sealer. Now I'm going to take my heat gun in a second. Where is it? Louise, take the heat gun. Ah, here we go. And then I melt the powder and how can I explain this now? In those areas where I thought it needs some kind of a glue / a connection between the pieces which haven't been completely sticked down. Do you know what I mean? Those pieces which were moving a little bit, there I overheated the embossing powder to make it run in between of all of the slots in between of the items. Does that make sense? Because when that is then cool later, it sticks together and it is really sturdy, and the embossing powder then is somehow like a glue. But this is frosted crystal, and remember, if you overheat frosted crystal, it gets glossy. So you have to have in mind, if you do that, that you don't overheat it in those areas where you want to have it matte. Yeah, because in the very first step with the frosted crystal embossing powder, we did that to get a matte and dusty finish. And of course, I didn't want to have it glossy over the whole piece. Do you know what I mean? So I paid attention to the amount of heat in the different spots of the project. So this is what it looks then, and I think, oh, sorry, that looks really, really good. I, moved it around a little bit to make sure that all of the pieces now are really, really sturdy on there. If that is not the case, you can, of course, always take some more frosted crystal embossing powder, or you could even take another kind of embossing powder. Yeah, you could take embossing glaze, yeah, if you want to have it colored in a specific color or several different colors. I also thought, what if you would take golden embossing powder or black and put it all over the whole surface and then bring out some details with, for example, a crayon. Yeah, you could even turn the whole thing into a really elegant golden abstract thing by embossing everything in gold. I'm happy that I had this idea too late, because then if I have had it earlier, then I would definitely have had some struggles deciding which version I wanted to do. Yeah, so now I have to live with this colorful version of this project. But the other thing with the gold or black or another color of embossing powder, that would look really cool, I think. So then I thought I need some people here, because in this landscape, I wanted to have some people. And of course, you can imagine this construction site didn't happen by coincidence or, with machines. There have been people here doing the whole work. And because of that, I have taken these paper doll minis, ideology paper dolls, and I have glued them there. And then suddenly, when I had them there, this was living, because of these little children there. And I'm really happy with this idea, and I'm hoping that you find this inspiring and that you want to try something like this as well. Let me know in the comments if you have tried it out, and have a very, very great day. See you the next time. Bye bye.